On a sunny morning in Sarajevo, June 28, 1914, the world stood on the brink of a cataclysmic war. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was visiting the city with his wife, Sophie. A young Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip, lay in wait. He fired 2 shots, mortally wounding Franz Ferdinand and Sophie. The assassination sent shockwaves across Europe. Austria-Hungary saw an opportunity to crush its troublesome neighbor. The assassination provided the perfect pretext for war. Austria-Hungary, enraged by the assassination, blamed Serbia for harboring and supporting terrorists. The Austro-Hungarian government, with the backing of its powerful ally Germany, saw an opportunity to assert its dominance over Serbia. They issued a harsh ultimatum to the Serbian government, a document designed to be nearly impossible to accept. The ultimatum demanded that Serbia condemn all anti-Austrian propaganda, suppress nationalist groups, and allow Austrian officials to participate in the investigation of the assassination on Serbian soil. The demands were a blatant infringement on Serbia's sovereignty. The Serbian government, caught between a rock and a hard place, faced an impossible choice. Accepting the ultimatum would mean surrendering its independence and facing humiliation on the world stage. Rejecting it would mean war with a far larger and more powerful empire. The ultimatum presented a diplomatic tightrope walk for Serbia. They attempted to appease Austria-Hungary while preserving their dignity and independence. The Serbian government agreed to most of the demands, but balked at allowing Austrian officials to operate freely within its borders. This partial rejection, however, was not enough to satisfy Austria-Hungary. They were determined to crush Serbia and used the rejection as a pretext for war. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand and the subsequent ultimatum did not occur in a vacuum. Europe in 1914 was a continent teetering on the edge of war, bound by a complex and rigid system of alliances. These alliances, forged in the preceding decades, obligated countries to come to each other's aid in the event of an attack. This system, designed to deter aggression, had the opposite effect. It created a hair-trigger situation where a conflict between 2 nations could quickly drag the entire continent into war. Germany, bound by treaty to Austria-Hungary, had pledged its unwavering support. Russia, on the other hand, was committed to defending Serbia, its Slavic ally. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, it triggered a chain reaction. Russia mobilized its troops in support of Serbia, prompting Germany to declare war on Russia. France, bound by its alliance with Russia, was also pulled into the conflict. The alliance system transformed a regional conflict in the Balkans into a global war. Great Britain, initially hesitant to get involved, declared war on Germany after the German army invaded neutral Belgium. Within a matter of weeks, the great powers of Europe were at war, their citizens swept up in a wave of patriotic fervor and fear. The world watched in horror as Europe descended into chaos. Historian Christopher Clark, in his seminal work, The Sleepwalkers, argues that the leaders of Europe in 1914 were like sleepwalkers, stumbling towards war without fully grasping the consequences of their actions. Clark suggests that none of the major powers actively sought a European war. Instead, a toxic mix of miscalculations, aggressive diplomacy, and rigid adherence to alliance systems created a situation that spiraled out of control. The leaders of 1914, blinded by nationalism, paranoia, and a misplaced faith in military strength, failed to find a peaceful resolution to the crisis. They underestimated the resolve of their adversaries and overestimated their own ability to control events. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand, while a tragedy, was not the sole cause of the war. It was the culmination of decades of diplomatic blunders, military build-up, and a collective failure of imagination. The concept of sleepwalkers serves as a chilling reminder of how easily nations can stumble into war. It highlights the dangers of unchecked nationalism, the importance of clear communication, and the need for leaders who prioritize diplomacy over military might. The leaders of 1914 failed to heed these lessons, and the world paid a terrible price. Section 5 echoes of the past in the present. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the subsequent outbreak of World War I hold eerie parallels to contemporary political events. The world today, much like Europe in 1914, faces a complex web of challenges. the rise of nationalism, political polarization, the erosion of trust between nations, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. These factors create a volatile global landscape where even seemingly isolated incidents can escalate rapidly. The attempted assassination of Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico in 2018, for example, serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace. Fico, a controversial figure known for his ties to Hungary's Viktor Orban and his pro-Russian stance, was the target of an attack that could have had far-reaching consequences for Slovakian politics and the broader European Union. The parallels between 1914 and the present day are striking. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand demonstrated how quickly a localized crisis could escalate into a global conflict. The attempted assassination of Fico underscores the fragility of peace in a world grappling with similar challenges. These events serve as a cautionary tale, reminding us that the lessons of history are as relevant as ever. Section 6. When assassinations backfire. Political assassinations are often intended to achieve specific political goals. Perpetrators hope to eliminate rivals, incite unrest, or spark revolutions. However, the consequences of such acts are rarely predictable or controllable. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand is a prime example of how an assassination can backfire spectacularly, leading to outcomes that are the opposite of what was intended. The Black Hand, the group behind the assassination, hoped to weaken Austria-Hungary and pave the way for a unified Serbian state. Instead, their actions triggered a world war that resulted in the deaths of millions and redrew the map of Europe. Serbia, the very nation they sought to liberate, was devastated by the conflict. The attempted assassination of Robert Fico also highlights the unpredictable consequences of political violence. The attack, had it been successful, could have destabilized Slovakia, strengthened the far right, and further polarized the European Union. It is impossible to predict the ripple effects of such acts, but history teaches us that violence rarely leads to the desired outcomes. Section 7. The fragile fabric of peace. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the subsequent outbreak of World War I serve as stark reminders of the fragility of peace. What began as a seemingly isolated incident in Sarajevo quickly engulfed the entire continent, demonstrating how easily peace can be shattered. The world in 1914, much like the world today, was interconnected. Events in one corner of the globe could have far-reaching consequences. The complex web of alliances, the rise of nationalism, the failure of diplomacy, and the relentless pursuit of military power all contributed to the outbreak of war. These factors, present in 1914, continue to pose threats to global peace and security today. The world is a more interconnected and interdependent place than ever before. Economic crises, climate change, pandemics, and regional conflicts transcend national borders. The lessons of history teach us that peace is not a passive state, but an active pursuit. It requires constant nurturing, dialogue, and a commitment to peaceful conflict resolution. The fragility of peace demands vigilance, cooperation, and a willingness to learn from the mistakes of the past. Section 8. The weight of history's lessons. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the subsequent outbreak of World War I offer invaluable lessons for today's world. By studying the events leading up to the war, we can gain insights into the dangers of nationalism, the importance of diplomacy, and the need for clear communication between nations. The assassination reminds us that even seemingly small conflicts can escalate rapidly, and that the consequences of violence are often unpredictable and devastating. It is essential for leaders to prioritize diplomacy, build trust, and seek peaceful resolutions to conflicts. The world today faces a multitude of challenges, but the lessons of history can guide us towards a more peaceful and stable future. The legacy of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand should serve as a constant reminder of the importance of peace and the need to prevent such tragedies from happening again. The world has changed dramatically since 1914, but the fundamental lessons of the Great War remain relevant. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand reminds us that peace is a precious and fragile commodity. It is a responsibility that falls on all of us to learn from the mistakes of the past and work towards a future where such tragedies are consigned to the history books. The world cannot afford another Sarajevo.